I hope you're all looking forward to getting involved in this student council. Unfortunately, I'm not able to join you for this council, and that most of you understand why. As President, I understand the importance of student council, particularly the first of the year when many students will have their first experience with UHISA. It should be a great opportunity to think big about your education and challenge the norms of the university to improve the student experience. My campaign about why I'm asking students to vote yes in confidence in me is based on 3 areas. Firstly, I will be addressing the allegations brought against me by Luke. I do respect the wishes of students to have this debate, and my campaign is trying to reach as many students as possible. However, this vote is far more than what is written into the motion of no confidence. As my record is being brought into question, I will talk to students about the work that I have been involved in, where students like yourselves put in good and often very hard work for the success of UHISA. Thirdly, as this is a time of change where UHISA will not exist as we know it in 2015, I will talk about the importance of a yes vote and confidence in me as President in ensuring we will secure a stronger voice for students in the Highlands and Islands. There is an administration and support deficit at UHISA that has placed a strain on the workforce of both sabbatical and volunteer officers, and which also hinders their ability to find time to engage with students and push for the changes students need. Officers are elected based on their manifesto policies and visions for the Students' Association, not appointed to fill specific skills. It is my belief that Students' Associations should indeed be student-led, however they should also be professionally supported. During summer handover, we addressed the recommendations of my censure, primarily the organisation of meetings. A way forward was agreed by the executive, and monthly meetings have been taking place. However, Luke walked out from this discussion before handing in his resignation as Deputy President of UHISA just days later. UHISA has faced difficulties in securing the professional support needed to assist the work of the full-time and volunteer officers. However, we have still managed to achieve for students. Under my leadership, together we have achieved the implementation of the first ever student partnership agreement in Scotland, which included the development of the UHI Student Social Experience Policy. Students were fully engaged in the process to recruit our new UHI principal, Professor Clive Mulholland, who has a strong focus and track record in student experience and has included our students as one of the 3 pillars of UHI's strategic plan for 2015 to 2020. We've also prevented students sitting in the same class being judged on different entry criteria because of their intention to graduate with a HNC or HND rather than a degree. Our success last year in my first year as your UHISA President was nationally recognised as we were awarded Small and Specialist Students Association of the Year 2014 from NUS Scotland. We are now challenged to turn our undoubted ability to use our enthusiasm for a better student experience to securing a stronger Students Association for all students in the Highlands and Islands. We are entering a time of change. In 2013, the UHI Academic Partnership was awarded £210,000 of government funding to produce a new framework for student representation for all students studying both further and higher education. UHISA, as we currently know it, will no longer exist. You will hear about the Student Representation Project later in the day and is sitting the project board for this. When we consider how we vote in this motion, it is important we consider what implications the result will have and how we work to ensure that the student voice from 2015 will be stronger and more effective than ever before. I'm the only full-time student officer in the entire Highlands and Islands. I want to use the remainder of my year to engage as many students as possible to make their mark on the project, so we have a new framework that works for us effectively. I accept that the current circumstances are far from perfect. However, I hope to secure your confidence to maximising these often challenging experiences to ensure that student representation is effective from 2015 and ensure strong local student voices are adequately facilitated to succeed. Voting yes will not just be about disputing the allegations which have been made, but also continuing our positive work for a strong student voice in the future. Thank you.
Rachel. Okay, we'll now open up to questions. One question.
Hello, I think we met last month at the conference. My question was, do you feel that UHISA puts too much pressure on one person to do so much. I mean, it struck me from our conversations is that you and other members of UHISA didn't have a clue how things work in the islands. And that's not a judgment on you, that's a judgment on UHISA. I think they're expecting one person to take on too much. You can't go around all of the islands, you can't do this, you can't do that. Do you think that this is something that needs to be addressed and changed in the future? And do you think that a lot of the failings are in the UHI and UHISA, not personally in yourself?
So I would agree that the failings are not solely within myself. It's been acknowledged by the university in the report that they submitted in request of the funding for the project that given the changes in the wider education environment, that the current situation is not fit for purpose, and that's why they have the funding to investigate the project. That's why they've got the project representation thing coming up. I've done my best at travelling around. I was at the Music House Refreshers last year where we had the barbecue with Bernadette, and I've been up to Shetland, and I know that Dane has been to Orkney, and John has been to Orkney, although I've not been there myself. So we do the best we can, but we are limited by capacity.
Any other questions?
In your statement there, you didn't address any of the allegations against you. Do you want to personally comment on the lack of minutes and etc. etc.?
Okay. So there's a number of allegations that have been made. Ones that I've not conducted regular executive meetings. There have been monthly executive meetings scheduled. So there was one in June, there was one on the 28th of July, there was one on the 25th of August, there was one on the 29th of September, there was one scheduled for the 24th of October. However, having said that I was sick on the Thursday, the meeting was on the Friday, having said that I was sick on the Thursday, I was then suspended on the Friday, and I'm unsure as to why that meeting was cancelled in my absence, and that meeting didn't go ahead. There have been regular meetings scheduled, and at the executive handover training, we were working on a solution to the issues that were raised in the centre, and the executive were happy with the way that we were moving forward. In terms of minutes, so it's already been highlighted that we don't have adequate support to be able to do everything that's expected of us. If we do everything fully and to the best that it could possibly be done, we're not in that situation at the moment. So both myself and other officers have gone beyond what should normally be expected in trying to make sure that we can do as much as possible. So we have had members of the executive taking minutes. It's felt that reduces their capacity to influence the meeting if they're trying to write minutes at the same time as represent the students that they're representing. So the alternative is to write up the minutes after the meeting from the recording. That's then an additional strain on students that are studying full time, have other commitments, have general life things that they need to do. So part of that was that we had administration support seconded from UHI. That was an attempt to try and rectify the difficulties that we were facing. Unfortunately, some of the minutes that we produced through that intervention haven't yet been approved by the executive due to concerns over their accuracy. Another way that we tried to address the difficulties of the minutes, we ran a recruitment process for a minute taker student internship, and unfortunately there were no applications received.
Thank you, Rachel. Any further questions?
When are the last publicly available minutes of an executive meeting for? How long are we missing minutes from?
The minutes from the June meeting are completed and approved.
are they online and available to students?
They're available to students at request, but they're not online.
So they're not publicly available?
They are publicly available if you request them.
That's not publicly available.
How do you know to request them if you
Yeah.
know they exist?
Yeah.
Is that a change in the way that the minutes are made available, or were the minutes readily available in a public domain where you could just go online and view them, or has it always been?
The minutes haven't been like that in the past, so they weren't like that. Like we've just had a new website. So in March, our previous website provider withdrew their services for student associations, so it's no longer viable to maintain them as our provider. We then moved over to a new website which is on Union Cloud, which is one of the NUS supported platforms. And with the difficulties that we've had last year and this year with capacity, we've not been able to fully develop the website, and there's a lot of things that should be on the website that we've not been able to implement as yet. And unfortunately, this is part of.
So what you're saying is they were publicly available on the website and now they're not. Is that? I'm sorry, I'm trying to clarify.
So your question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify where these minutes were available in a public domain that were accessed at any time, or were they always that you had to request for the minutes?
I'm not aware of the minutes having been publicly available in terms of being published.
In any time of your presence?
It was just clarifying the last statement there. Of course, it said it's not been up anything during our business. I think I'm going to presume that it hasn't been up anything during the previous presidencies either. It's just a case of course, focus hasn't been put onto that because it didn't seem like such a massive deal. So I was just wondering, maybe like provided that you yes, with confidence, we could maybe see a future and having them published on Shindig, that would be because of course now it's been addressed, so we'll be able to follow with that. That's basically what I was asking you, like after if you vote yes with confidence, we could then able to support a motion which would have the minutes put up on Shindig if that was told by law with UHISA.
If Shindig wants to publish our minutes, that would be up to Shindig. As far as I'm concerned, they would be welcome to. I'm not aware of any problem with that. Given this situation and the awareness that this is raising within the student body and the strength of feeling, I would hope that if we were to reopen the position for the student intern minute taker, there might now be an interest and a greater understanding of the importance of that role, and we might receive some applications that we can support ourselves in that better.
Another question, please?
This question probably applies to both sides, really, but I forgot to ask it. The first time I caught whiff of this whole no confidence thing was when I saw it on Facebook. Do you people think that it's really appropriate that this is being carried out on social media? I know it's hard to get the message across so many partner colleges, but we've got Blackboard, we've got video conferencing, we've got email. This looks bad being on Facebook from both sides, not just you. What do you think about this, really?
I would rather this wasn't all on Facebook and on social media. However, that's one of the methods that the students are choosing to use in raising this. Like that's the forum that this has been raised in, so it's the forum that I need to respond to it in. So the students that are using that forum then have a response. There have been all student emails sent out. Are we certain that they've gone to all students?
They've been sent. The system shows that they've been sent.
So there have been all student emails that have been sent out publicly as well.
But what I mean is that people have been made aware by it. But should the discussion that's still continuing on social media not be moved to maybe more of a secure platform than publicly accessible Facebook pages that the entire world can see?
Given that I'm now suspended, I can't implement things like the launch of a Blackboard site or whatever. And that's not something that I have the authority to do. I think that would be a question more for the main members of UHISA.
Further questions?
I just want you to comment on the accusation of change of policy overriding the student body, the LGBT issue of votes.
Okay, so the student council, unfortunately that wasn't quorum, and that's not unusual for student council not to be quorum. And in fact, last November was the first student council that anyone could actually remember as having been quorum, and that was organised by myself, Dane, and Kat, who were the previous faculty officers.
What does quorum mean?
And quorum is the amount of students that are required for the meeting to be formally recognised as a meeting. So the quorum that is required is 30 students. So if 30 students are present, the decisions that are made by student council are binding. If there's not 30 students present, the discussion that is had, it then goes on to inform the discussions at the executive committee. So the student council in April wasn't quorum. So the minutes of those discussions were used and they were regularly consulted when the executive were going through the motions to see what the executive was going to pass and what would fail. There was concerns raised in the minutes from the student council in April regarding the protected characteristics of having data stored, and that appeared to be the main concern about why the motion was recommended to be voted down by the students that were present. When we had the executive meeting to discuss the motions, we addressed the concerns that had been raised because the data would not be stored. The proposal was that there would be a disclaimer added to the top of the voting page explaining the importance of liberation campaigns being run by those who self-define, and that it would be down to the trust in the students to respect that statement. The motion stated that it would be open to self-defining students so far as possible. Obviously, it's not possible to enforce it absolutely categorically and without demanding data from people. So as far as possible, that's what we can do to put a disclaimer statement. And that was to be circulated around the executive once it was written to ensure that the executive were happy with what was proposed.
Any more questions from PC or in the room?
I have a quick question. The executive is not just the three sabbatical, it's all the officers. Currently,
All the officers who've been elected.
yes, all the elected officers. So, at what capacity of possible executive is the executive currently operating at?
Very limited capacity. We have 7 elected officers who are currently in UHISA. There's capacity for a representative from each of the academic partners, and there's then there's 13 there. There's then the various specialist positions, so postgraduate international students, women's officer, LGBT officer, disabled students officer, Gaelic officer, IT officer, so they're all part of that as well.
Okay. So, would you say that because of the reduced operating capacity of both the executive, because you're missing a deputy president, and the reduced capacity of the executive, that this year has been especially difficult in achieving anything because of that reduced capacity?
Yeah. So I think it comes back to what Judith was saying in response to one of the questions about it's always been difficult, and that was acknowledged by Judith, for the presidents and all the demands that are placed on them. That has been especially so given the circumstances that we're in at the moment. There's also been there's been a number of changes within the wider education sector, which has resulted in changes for the UHI as well. So the responsibilities placed on UHISA in representing students to the university is increasing as well, and the importance of representation to universities and colleges Scotland-wide is being highlighted as being more important than they've previously been. And so the expectations and responsibilities of students associated ever increasing.
One more question.
Hi. It's quite a tough job, obviously, but given it's your second term, wouldn't it be fair to say that you were aware of the pressures before signing on this time round?
Yeah, I'm aware that it's a very difficult job. I also ran for election based on the assumption that there would be a full complement of sabbatical officers. In last year, being an officer last year meant that myself and Dave, who were the president at the end of the year, we had to write the budget proposal. We had to write the budget proposal for UHI to request our block grant for this year. So in that we included a full-time grade 6 salary, which we were hoping would support UHISA and make that job a lot more manageable. So we had plans to try and increase the support available for UHISA to make the jobs more accessible to a wide range of students.
It's a 21-day suspension, or until the... This is going to sound like a daft question, but what are we missing out on because of this? What would you be doing right now and working on right now if it wasn't for the suspension?
I can tell you that on Monday I would have been at a meeting with the principal of UHI, the chair of UHI Court, and I think it was unconfirmed when I was suspended who the representative from NUS was, but I think it was going to be the director of NUS Scotland, Russell, who was going to be present at that meeting. And that was to finalise the support package for UHISA for the remainder of the year. So it's been acknowledged back in April before the previous Student Council. I made a statement to UHI Court saying that the difficulties that we were facing were becoming unmanageable and that we required a greater amount of support. That then led to discussions with the deputy principal, who was acting as principal during that time, and a support plan for UHISA was being drawn up, and I would have been at a meeting on Monday to finalise that. Unfortunately, I'll not be there, so I'm not sure what.
So you would say the suspension's been damaging to UHISA and the UHI as a whole, really, if you've had to miss this meeting?
I wouldn't say that it's been beneficial.
Okay, do you have any final questions for Rachel? Michael, sorry, and go. Yes, Michael, and go.
Success. It's not so much a question, but a piece of guidance from our renowned constitution to amplify something that I've read, and I can't remember where I've read it, but it was to deal with the not so much definition of gross misconduct, because it's not defined, but the paragraph that deals with a vote of no confidence, it does deal with other areas which are considered grounds for a vote of no confidence. And I'll read these. It says, a vote of no confidence leading to dismissal may be considered for an allegation of gross misconduct. Now, admittedly, that's top of the list. The list continues. Theft, misappropriation of resources, a principal office bearer being absent without leave, drunkenness, use of drugs, fighting, endangering people or property, racism and sexism. Now, the lawyer's point I'm making is this. These other descriptions of conduct, behaviour, have a certain quality about them. And it's my proposition, my submission, my advice, that the gross misconduct must have as serious a quality about it as these other types of behaviour that I've described. Thank you.
Okay, so
what was your question?
Well, can I ask a question based on that? I think what Michael is trying to point out is, do you consider what has happened over the past year to be an example of gross misconduct?
Although 202 students do.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Thank you. I think that concludes that section. I'd like to
say something.
I'd like an opportunity now, just, I don't want this too long, but just if there are any questions you'd like to ask both candidates in front of us here, so are there any questions you'd like to ask both candidates? And this is not a debate, it's not between the two, but if there's a question you'd like to ask both candidates.
Yeah, I want to ask Judith if there is the vote of no confidence, whether she'd be running for president. And the same goes for Lucas, you know.
Sorry, I think someone said they wanted to ask me a question, but I couldn't hear what they asked. Would you mind repeating it, please?
Yeah, sure. If there is a vote of no confidence, will you be running for president?
No. Fortunately, I just got a job at RSPB, and I have never had any intention of running, apart from with the attempt to offer something to UHISA, which I might have got during a year's experience, but no, definitely not running.
Okay, and do you know whether Luke would want to run?
I honestly couldn't say. I think Luke is also applying for jobs elsewhere, so I doubt it.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other question for both of you?
Okay, this is for both of you. Given the fact that the by-election has taken place, and out of all the positions available, we've had the grand total of one very, very qualified person standing, but that's still not exactly a good field to choose from. Do you really think that if the position of president becomes available, that we will have anybody standing for that position to fill it for the next 6 months?
I would highlight that Luke resigned on the 30th of June, and there were then discussions about how to replace that as of the 1st of July, and it's taken to this point to run this by-election. And this is, if another by-election was to be held, it would be over the Christmas period, so there may not be students actually engaged. We also have exams, so that would mean it would be pushed back to the beginning of the second semester, at which time the project has already approved its final structure. We'll be working in developing and fleshing out those. The other thing is that the deadline for staff funding is now passed, so that if you withdraw now, you're considered to have used up a full year of staff funding. So it would affect people financially, and given that we've not had a number of volunteers, like a number of candidates standing for the deputy position at the moment, when that's still possible, I would be very sceptical of anybody coming forward.
Would you like to ask that question?
Okay, Kevin, I'm really still struggling to hear you, but I think you said, can I answer the question now? Okay. Okay, so the question isn't actually whether or not we would get a candidate who was able to jump in with both feet straight away. It's actually whether or not we would get a candidate at all. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. I couldn't say, not being able to predict the future. I would say that I was horrified by the fact that only one person was standing, and that's not because of the one person standing, I hasten to add. It's because of the numbers. But I do get the feeling from having spoken to other people that they don't want to serve with the executive as it is at this moment in time. And so I honestly couldn't say that Rachel's no confidence in Rachel and Rachel's dismissal wouldn't actually lead to an increase in interest. But then, like I say, I can't say. I mean, I can say that we had a by-election last year in which Alan MacDonald was appointed as a part-time VP, which is the role now filled by Heidi. And that was a contested election, so I don't think the timing of the election necessarily has anything to do with it. I think it's whether or not people are going to want to get involved with UHISA as is. And I think Rachel's dismissal might actually lead to an increase in interest because people hold her responsible for the bad things that have been happening.
Thank you. I think we're just going to end that session there. I know that yes, it's going to end anyway. Thank you very much, Judith and Rachel. Thank you, Rachel, for your presentation, taking questions, and for the last questions there. I'll just